When you think of the greatest coaches in rugby history, what sort of names come to mind? You're probably sitting there listing names such as New Zealand cursebreaker Graham Henry, the indomitable Steve Hansen, or the innovating Rassie Erasmus. One name that perhaps you did not consider, and understandably so, given the events which have transpired in the last few years, is Australian public enemy number one, Eddie Jones.
What a night it is for Wales. It's the third time only they've beaten Australia in a Rugby World Cup match, and they have ripped them apart. They have demolished them tonight.
Now, it goes without saying that Eddie Jones is certainly a controversial figure, but not that long ago, he was being heralded by the English media as the world's best coach, leading arguably the world's best team. Unfortunately for Jones, the end of his England reign was not the fairy tale hoped for, but rather a tragic way to bow out. Following Eddie's untimely exit with the 2023 Rugby World Cup looming a few months later, former England international Steve Borthwick assumed the mantle. Fast forward to the present day, we've seen Borthwick gain some impressive victories, suffer some narrow defeats, and more recently part ways with the highly touted Felix Jones. As was the case with Eddie, Borthwick seems to be having his own version of the good, the bad and the ugly. And that leaves us rugby fans to wonder, are we in the midst of witnessing Eddie 2.0? So join us as we take a look. Will England return to the summit of world rugby under Steve Borthwick? Or will the Red Roses continue to remain a step behind rugby's elite? Now, before we get into this any further, if you like this content, please like and subscribe, it really helps out our channel. 2 decades ago, England were firmly on top of the rugby world, boasting one of the most successful periods of any team in any era. If you haven't seen our video on that, we suggest you check it out after watching this one. We'll leave a link in the bio. This era all peaked when Jonny Wilkinson's drop goal led England to lifting the World Cup in a famous triumph over hosts Australia. The man in the driving seat for the Aussies that day was none other than Eddie Jones. Following this unprecedented period of success for England, a drastic and sudden downfall was witnessed by the entire rugby world in the years that followed. With the squad ageing year by year and the core of the 2003 vintage no longer there, England experienced a dramatic fall from grace. The surprise of making the 2007 final and successful years in both 2011 and 2013 seemed to paper over the cracks of what had become a bad imitation of their former selves. This all changed when Eddie arrived at the end of 2015. Thrust into the role of repairing a demoralised squad after experiencing a nightmarish World Cup campaign, Eddie did more than just repair. Trophies, unbeaten streaks, and battling for ranking supremacy, Eddie turned England into a force to be reckoned with, initially at least. His crowning moment was in the making, as he led England to a victorious World Cup semi-final win in 2019 against a mighty All Black outfit. Heading into the final against the Springboks a week later, his Cinderella story seemed all but written. However, a masterclass in tactical prowess from Rassie Erasmus, plus the untimely first-minute injury of strongman Kyle Sinclair, left Eddie with another bittersweet silver medal. During this time, a certain Steve Borthwick had served as Eddie's forwards coach, and it was clear for all to see that under Borthwick, the pack had transformed into an 8-man wrecking ball. Jones would retain the reins while Borthwick would take over as head coach of the Leicester Tigers following 2019. Under Jones, it appeared that more success was certain with young players such as Tom Curry and Maro Itoje set to come of age. A 2020 Six Nations crown would confirm this belief, but that was where the success would end. Eddie, known to be a difficult customer to work with, faced continuous backlash from the English media after a turmoil-filled 2022. Less than 12 months out from the World Cup, the decision was made to replace Eddie with Steve Borthwick. Eddie had begun as a hero, but left as a villain. Would Borthwick fare any differently? Borthwick's reign got off to a shaky start, achieving only 3 wins in 9 tests prior to the World Cup in 2023. The final warm-up game saw England come up against the unpredictable Flying Fijians at Twickenham. England seemed lacklustre and one-dimensional with no attacking punch. Fiji, on the other hand, showed boldness, attacking with brilliance and flair to show that they were not to be taken lightly. England entered the tournament flying very much under the radar, with little expectation of a win. They began the tournament with a George Ford masterclass as he kicked a favoured Argentinian side to pieces. Convincing wins both over Japan and Chile followed, with their final group match being against an always physical Samoan side. A game filled with controversy meant that England fought back from a deficit to win the game 18 points to 17, courtesy of a Danny Kerr try. Off the back of a scrum, Marcus Smith shifted to the blind side as first receiver, attracting the attention of the opposition defence while Kerr sniped right to score next to the post. This set up a rematch with Fiji in the quarter-finals, and it seemed that England were building momentum under Borthwick at the right time. A close-fought battle with the Fijians took place and England came out narrow victors, setting up an unlikely semi-final with South Africa. England defied all odds to beat South Africa at their own game, frustrating the Springboks at every opportunity until the bomb squad injected new life into the game to allow Andre Pollard the chance to break English hearts, and he did. For the third place playoff, England met Argentina again and defeated them to win the consolation prize. They had exceeded expectation and it appeared something was building. Although 2024 has seen mixed results, there are glimpses of some improvement. Borthwick snapped up some of rugby's most sought-after brains, Felix Jones in particular. His impact seemed to be working well, as England defeated Italy, Wales and Ireland in the Six Nations and narrowly lost to both Scotland and France. The losses both occurred away from home, and on another day, perhaps it would have been England's victory. Ironically, they went on to defeat an Eddie Jones-led Japan by 52 points to 17, before travelling to New Zealand for the incoming tour. In both test matches, England pushed the Kiwis very closely, losing in Dunedin by 16 points to 15 and suffering a close loss at Eden Park. Although the English had lost both tests, it was a step in the right direction in terms of performance. England appeared to be going back to their traditional strengths. The Red Rose DNA is on its way back. English domestic rugby has always been a stronghold amongst domestic clubs around the world. Famous clubs such as Saracens and Bath are renowned across the globe and attract players from every corner of it. While new tournaments such as the United Rugby Championship have given some clubs the opportunities to thrive financially, those in the English Premiership aren't able to say the same. For years on end, we've heard rumours of historical English rugby clubs facing financial difficulty. It's been reported that 7 of the remaining 10 teams in the Premiership are balance sheet insolvent. Net debts within the league are reported to be over £300 million. This no doubt tells a scary tale for the future of English rugby, with sides such as London Irish and Wasps no longer taking part in the Premiership following administration. It remains to be seen how the bigwigs at the RFU will attempt to resolve this issue and the impact which it will have on Steve Borthwick's ability to take the national side to new heights. Now, outside of the domestic problems English rugby currently faces, Borthwick continues to experience issues within his own camp. While the circumstances outside of his camp are clearly out of his control, those within it are not. Borthwick did a great job of assembling a group of knowledgeable, tried and tested rugby brains initially. As it stands, Steve Borthwick has lost the services of arguably one of the best strength and conditioning coaches in world rugby, added Walters to rivals Ireland. To add insult to injury, he's also parted ways with the earlier mentioned Felix Jones, who will have other nations fighting to involve him in their plans. Borthwick is a coach of little compromise. While the ins and outs of the departures remain unknown, one would hope that we aren't seeing a repeat of Eddie Jones.
And I'm not sure, Rob, what this bronze medal does for them, you know, if anything.
it almost paints over a little bit of cracks for them, I think, and particularly for Steve Borthwick. You would have argued maybe a few months ago that his job was under pressure.
While Eddie achieved success on the field at times, he has become known as being notoriously difficult to deal with. Borthwick seemingly looks more and more like a coach cut from the same cloth as his one-time mentor, Eddie Jones.
I don't really have any regrets, 7 years coaching England, and the end comes to it very rarely ends well, and it was always going to end in some way.
Eddie Jones 2.0, you may ask? Well, the similarities are certainly there. England have the potential to kick on and cement themselves as a powerhouse of world rugby once again. The young players have confidence and the older heads have the know-how, but can they find the right blend to put it all together? The challenges Borthwick face are abundant, but not impossible to overcome. We shall wait and see whether by the end of Borthwick's term we're calling him brilliant or Eddie's failed successor. So, give us your thoughts on Borthwick. Is he really Eddie Jones 2.0? As always, thanks for watching, please leave a comment, and remember to subscribe and help us to bring you more great rugby content. Stay tuned.